Hey buddies, and welcome back. It's Jihan here. Today I'm working on the theme for my digital planner this November. I start my planning with a color palette, mood board, and then creating illustrations and stickers in Procreate to take into the GoodNotes app later. This month's theme was sparked by the book cover in the bottom left that you see. It got me on a bit of a light academia buzz, but I won't claim light academia because I think people get very serious about their themes and I take nothing seriously. I started off just using the HP pencil and later I switched to the Norinda pencil because it's slightly neater and more inky, but it keeps the texture. For the twine, I used a flat base color with a much darker pen added for details to create the impression of the twists that you usually get on twine. And I addressed my envelope to Dreamers to add some whimsy, but also because it ties some of my quotes to this month's theme that we'll get to later. To draw these glasses, I basically sculpted the shape by repeatedly drawing the wrong lines, by accident of course, and then using the eraser to get the shape that I actually want. Eventually I gave up though and relented to the liquify tool to make it more rounded. And of course I duplicated it for the second lens. Each new part of the glasses I drew was on a new layer, because there's no point in making things more difficult for yourself than they already are. Only right now do I realize that I have no idea what the term is for the sides of the glasses, the part that goes over the ears. So after a quick Google, I can tell you that the word is temple. So I drew the temple in a much lighter color. Wait, temples? Yeah. I drew the temples in a much lighter color so that it doesn't compete with the lens and stands out less. Initially, I wanted to draw butterflies as if they were a stamp, which is why I went in with such heavy line work. I could have traced the butterflies or done the same method I showed you last month with the foxes, but I think butterflies are a more forgiving shape that doesn't have to be perfect. I'm using this as a lesson to try train my eyes into seeing the shapes and making better guesses. But I still go into the image and trace over the details in order to understand them and be able to simplify them. I finished it off with my classic scribble. It's very intentional with the direction that it's scribbled and the beginning and the end point of each scribble, but I do it very quickly to make it feel organic. The butterfly that's open full will at least benefit from the duplicate and flip horizontal tool, which made me realize how skew I drew the body of it, but with a little distortion it was fixed right away. I fell in love with this blue while doing these butterflies because it's such a calming shade to look at. I found this last butterfly the trickiest. Maybe it's the direction it's facing. Looking back on it, I probably should have flipped the canvas so that the angle of the wings felt more natural to draw for me. While I'm drawing this, I'm thinking about the butterfly in 3D space and where the wings would line up with the body. And sometimes distorting the entire shape instead of just small parts makes it look more cohesive overall. I'm quite excited about this next trick, which is not really a trick, but it was the first time that I used it. It's the tweak brush from Procreate's default brushes in organic. The first one is pretty chunky and then they progressively get thinner. I think I prefer the thin ones. I put them on alpha lock and then used a slightly darker color to add some dimension and shading to the edges. And after I created this little bunch, I went over it again with a tweak brush in that darker color. Now with the light academia theme, although I'm still not claiming the theme, it would be incomplete without some book pages or preferably torn pages. I could stick an image in here, but I think it would throw off the whole look and in a way defeats the purpose for which I created these themes, which is to get myself to draw more. So thankfully Procreate has more default brushes to the rescue. In textures, you can find ones that look a bit like craft paper. In particular, the Melaleuca and Tarkine. They quite naturally give a rough edge, which is perfect for this. There's probably a way to refine the edges better and make it look more realistic for that torn paper look, and maybe I'll do that another time. Right now, the name of the game is how little can I do to get the desired effect. I think two good options for text are American Typewriter and Courier New. I opted for Courier New in a deep, almost black brown. My quotes for this month were chosen based on courage and fear. Courage has recently become a very important word for me because it's essential for stepping into unknown spaces where the future is a little unclear. The first quote is from To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Real courage is to know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and see it through no matter what. We'll just pretend that the quote ends here and doesn't go on to say, you rarely win, but sometimes you do, because that just puts a damper on the effect. Then I set the text to color burn so that it blends into the textured background better instead of just floating on top of it. Having the style set up already was easy to duplicate it for the next two quotes. Time is the longest distance between two places, by Tennessee Williams, and It is nothing to die, it is dreadful not to live, by Victor Hugo. I am very grateful that I kept the original layers because I noticed a small typo much later. I thought I was ready for my opening spread, but I realized I only had a few small stickers and no hero image, which led me to creating this giant envelope, using the paper texture brushes and fitting a small wax seal that sealed absolutely nothing, but carries the letter N for November. I've been watching a few hand lettering lessons on Skillshare, which have showed me the correct direction to write letters with their thick and thin strokes and also how to create a frame and add details after. I should have used the wax seal to stick a flower onto the envelope or something, so be smarter than me and do better. While dropping in my stickers, I realized that I had drawn the glasses way smaller than the size that I actually wanted to use them, which caused them to pixelate. So I had to enlarge it back in Procreate and draw back over the lines to make them sharper. And while it was larger, I didn't feel happy with the temple tips, but I didn't have the safety net of my layers anymore. So to deal with overlapping shapes, you draw through the shape and then erase and draw over to make your lines consistent. Since the torn paper is quite sheer, I added a base layer in a flat color below to make it less transparent. And very simply, I wanted to use my magazine letter stickers to create stamps, but it ended up being far more trial and error than I expected. My first attempt used the black letters, for which I dropped each letter in individually, but I forgot that the letter has a white fill, so it doesn't work. So using the correct white letters, I used the select tools from the files to pick all my letters and drop them in at once. I had no idea if this was going to work, but it did, so happy dance, that saves me so much time. Now, attempt 1. It looks wrong because the flat colors lack texture, which is not realistic for stamps. So the Signet brush in texture to the rescue. Attempt 2. Great texture, but the blocks are weird, right? The stamps don't really look like that. So back to my flat text and inverting the selection so that I can paint inside the letter on a new layer. Pretty cool. Let's neaten that up. And then add back some of the ink splats with Burnt Tree by painting it on and then erasing it with the same brush. Attempt 3. Ooh, much better. But it's pretty odd that the letters are so far apart, right? Oh my god, get it together, girl. Attempt 4. Done. I'm done. It's enough. Now for more typewriting. I got the text to where I wanted it, rasterized the duplicated layer so that I can play with the textures. First while it's on alpha lock, But you have to note that this is a distractive method to the text. You might want to use a mask instead. Then I went in tighter to remove some edges of the letters to make them less perfect. If you like this month's color palette, you can get the hex codes in the description, as well as the link to the planner and the free stickers from this theme. A few hay pieces to complete the spread, but it didn't really feel done until I used the highlighter in the light grey to create a drop shadow. And thankfully, by separating my selection to only images, I could bring it on top. Onto the monthly spread, where I can spend less time thinking and just decorate. I overcame my fear of the text tool for the sake of the typewriting theme and made these cute little cards with a craft paper color and a drop shadow that shows how they overlap in a cool way. It's faster to paste them all first and then edit the text second. When it comes to the actual planning, my quarterly pages have to be consulted to fill in any special dates already set. And I'm using my lifestyle digital stickers, some of which I've already saved to Elements. The spread didn't feel complete without some baby breaths, which if I'm honest, I was afraid to do because, like branches, right? They make no sense to me. What helped a bit was noticing that the branch has a little thickening sort of triangle shape at the point that it diverges. And apparently I like torturing myself because I made more stamped letters. I love the idea of a pressed flower, but honestly I had no clue how to approach them, so I settled on these light blue flat flowers with straighter edges. I wasn't sure at first if adding details in pen would work, so as always I had a safety backup there. To make the text look slightly more special this time, I added a space between each letter. Now usually I would draw a box to fill in and then layer it a few times, but I realized if you get the right highlighter size, you can just chop off the edges and get a perfect rectangle. For the actual weekly spread, I'm going to zoom through it because it's pretty basic, which I'm not mad at. I end up really filling up the space with text for my actual planning. hope you've enjoyed the video, maybe learned some things, or at least feel inspired to have more fun and express your creativity with your planner. That's it for this month. Remember to get the hex codes and download the free stickers for this month, all linked below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and it'll help others find this content, which I really appreciate it. Happy planning, everybody!